There are days when the weight of my thoughts feels unbearable, as though I'm trudging through an endless fog, uncertain of what comes next. Every step forward feels heavier than the last, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes I feel as though I'm carrying a burden too heavy to bear, as though my heart and mind are constantly in a battle I don't know how to win. It's exhausting to fight against a current I can't see, but can feel pulling me under. The hardest part is waking up each day, not knowing if I have the strength to keep going. It feels like I'm caught in a cycle of uncertainty, where nothing seems to make sense, and all I want is peace from the constant noise in my head. I often wonder if I'll ever feel whole again, or if this emptiness will always be my companion. It's a quiet kind of loneliness that I can't explain to anyone, a feeling of being adrift without an anchor. I try to keep moving, but sometimes it feels like my spirit is weighed down by invisible chains. The fight to keep going is one I often face alone, with no clear direction or certainty in sight. The days seem to blur together, each one feeling like a repeat of the last. It's hard to see the point of anything when it all feels so disconnected and far away from what I once knew. There are moments when I feel like I've lost myself somewhere in the chaos of life. It's as if my sense of who I am has faded into the background, and I don't know how to find my way back to the person I used to be. I often find myself questioning the value of my existence, wondering if I matter in a world that feels so distant and indifferent. But somewhere deep down, I know that even these thoughts are part of the journey, no matter how difficult they may be. Some days, it's like my emotions are in a constant state of turmoil, and no matter how hard I try, I can't seem to calm the storm within me. The exhaustion from trying to hold everything together is overwhelming. I wish I could find a way to quiet the storm inside my head. The constant noise and the endless questions about what comes next are exhausting, and it's hard to imagine a future where things feel any different. It feels like I'm standing at the edge of something unknown, unsure of whether to take the next step or to stay where I am. The fear of moving forward is paralyzing, and the thought of staying still is just as terrifying. Sometimes I feel like a shadow of who I used to be. The things that once brought me joy now seem distant, and I wonder if I'll ever be able to reconnect with that sense of fulfillment again. There are days when the simplest tasks feel impossible, as though my energy has been drained from me and there's nothing left to give. It's hard to push through when everything feels like an uphill battle. I often wonder if I'll ever feel truly at peace again. My thoughts seem to be constantly racing, and it's difficult to quiet the noise long enough to experience any semblance of calm or contentment. It's hard to keep pretending everything is fine when inside I feel like I'm crumbling. Each day feels like a new struggle, and the weight of it all sometimes makes it feel like too much to bear. There are moments when I wish I could simply escape from everything, to find a place where I could just breathe and let go of the pressure I feel. But even then, I wonder if running away would bring me the peace I long for. The world feels distant and cold at times, as though I'm watching everything from behind a glass wall. I want to reach out, to feel connected, but it's hard when I feel like I'm drifting farther away from it all. The uncertainty of life can be overwhelming. It's like being stuck in a fog where I can't see the way forward, and I'm not sure how to navigate through it. I just wish I could find clarity and direction. Some days it feels like I'm standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter in sight. I try to weather the storm, but the strength it takes to hold on feels like too much at times. I often feel like I'm stuck in an endless loop of confusion and doubt. Every day is a struggle to find meaning or purpose in a world that seems so uncertain. And sometimes I wonder if I'll ever find a way out. I've learned that sometimes it's okay not to have all the answers, but even then, it's hard to silence the inner questioning that never seems to end. The feeling of being lost in my own thoughts. There are times when I wish I could press pause and just take a breath, to step outside the whirlwind of emotions and thoughts that swirl around me. But it seems like there's no break, no moment of respite from the storm. I often feel like I'm sinking, like there's a weight pulling me down into a place I can't escape from. It's not something I can explain, just a deep-rooted sense of weariness that colors every aspect of my life. Some days, it feels like I'm walking through life with blinders on, unable to see anything clearly or fully engage with the world around me. I long for a moment of clarity, a spark of light in the darkness. I'm learning that healing isn't linear, and that sometimes the path forward isn't clear. It's okay to not have everything figured out, but that doesn't make it any easier when the uncertainty weighs so heavily. The loneliness I feel isn't just about being alone. It's about not being able to connect with anyone on the level I need. I crave understanding, but sometimes it feels as though the kind of connection is out of reach. I'm tired of feeling invisible, like my struggles don't matter. I wish I could express the pain I carry inside, but it's hard to put into words something so deeply personal and complex. There are days when I feel like I've lost touch with the world, like I'm watching everything unfold from a distance, but can't quite find my place in it. The sense of disconnection is overwhelming. Sometimes I wonder if things will ever get better, or if I'm destined to stay in this place of uncertainty. But deep inside, I know that every moment holds the potential for change, even if it's hard to see right now. The hardest part is not knowing what the future holds, or if I'll ever feel whole again. It's like trying to walk a tightrope with no end in sight, and every step feels like a risk. I find myself questioning my purpose, wondering what I'm meant to do in a world that often feels indifferent. It's a struggle to hold on to a sense of meaning when everything seems so fleeting and uncertain. Sometimes it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and no matter how much I try to lighten the load, it only grows heavier. I long for the day when I can feel at peace with myself. I've realized that even when I'm struggling, it's important to show up for myself, even if it's just a small act of kindness. But some days, even that feels like too much to ask. There are days when I feel like I'm losing touch with reality, like everything around me is slipping away. It's hard to find my footing when the ground beneath me feels so unstable. I often find myself searching for something to hold on to, something that will remind me of who I am and why I keep going. It's a constant search for meaning, for purpose, that I'm not sure I'll ever fully understand. The struggle isn't just about surviving. It's about learning how to live in a way that feels authentic and true to myself. It's a process, and sometimes it feels like I'm moving in circles instead of forward. Sometimes I feel like I'm standing on the edge, unsure of whether to jump or stay. The fear of the unknown is paralyzing, and yet the desire for change keeps pulling me forward, even when I'm not sure where I'm headed. I've learned that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. And though I may not be where I want to be yet, I try to remind myself that each step forward, no matter how small, is still progress. There are times when I feel like I'm being swallowed whole by the darkness, unable to find my way back to the light. But I hold on to the hope that one day I'll emerge stronger and wiser from this experience. I wish I could explain the weight I carry inside, the constant tug of uncertainty that never let up. But sometimes words aren't enough to express what it's like to live with the invisible burdens of the mind. There are days when it feels like nothing matters and every effort seems pointless. But deep down, I know that these moments don't define me and that there's always a chance for things to turn around. The quiet moments are the hardest. It's when I'm alone with my thoughts that I feel the full weight of everything. But even in those moments, I try to remind myself that I am more than my struggles. I often wonder if anyone truly understands the depth of my pain, or if I'm just too afraid to let anyone in. The fear of vulnerability keeps me closed off, even when all I want is to feel seen and heard. It feels like I'm trapped in a cycle of thoughts that go nowhere, a loop that keeps repeating itself, no matter how hard I try to break free. The constant uncertainty can be draining, but I hold onto the hope that one day it will stop. There are times when I feel like I'm fading away, like I'm becoming less of myself with each passing day. But I try to remind myself that even in those moments, I am still here, still fighting, still moving forward. Sometimes it's not the big things that overwhelm me, but the small, everyday struggles. It's the little moments of doubt, of loneliness that seem to pile up until they feel too heavy to carry. I wish I could find a way to quiet the noise in my head, to give myself a moment of peace. But even in the chaos, I try to remind myself that I have the power to keep going, even when it feels like too much.